like to call the State Board of Education meeting to order for August 4th, 2026. We welcome everyone that's here today. And if you will join us in the pledge, our Vice Chair, Joyce Crimminger, will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just want to remind our board members to speak into the microphone so that our comments and questions can be accurately recorded and transcribed. At this time, is there any objection to approving the minutes as presented? And these are the minutes from the June 2nd, 2026 meeting. Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. We have several visitors here with us today, and we're glad to have you, and we welcome you and are thankful that you're here. And you that have joined us, some are here present, some are online, but we thank you for your interest in the State Board of Education. For the my State Board Chair report, our hometown hero, we're going to take you all the way to Florence, South Carolina, to Francis Marion University. And our hometown hero this month is the Center of Excellence to prepare teachers of children of poverty. And I believe this represents one of the most intentional efforts in South Carolina to prepare educators who understand the challenges and the tremendous potential of our students who live in poverty. The center has a clear mission to better prepare teachers and school leaders to serve children impacted by poverty. The center recognizes an important truth, and I think we all can agree. Poverty should never determine a child's destiny. Every student deserves outstanding teaching, high expectations, and meaningful opportunities to succeed. One of the center's greatest strengths is its focus on practical preparation. Teachers are not only learning instructional strategies, but are also learning how trauma, instability, food insecurity, and limited access to resources can affect student learning and behavior. The program helps educators understand and move from asking what's wrong to asking what has this child experienced and how can we help them succeed. That shift in mindset changes classrooms, but it also changes lives. Another powerful aspect of this program is its commitment to rural and underserved communities across South Carolina, because many who graduate from the program go on to teach and lead in schools where highly effective educators are needed the most. The work of the center is especially important because research consistently shows that effective teaching is one of the most, and I would say the most powerful school-based factor in improving outcomes for students who live in poverty. And ultimately, the Center for Excellence is not just preparing teachers, it's developing advocates, leaders, and difference makers who believe every child can learn, grow, and thrive regardless of circumstances. The success of the center is also a reminder that strong programs are built on strong leadership. And you see on the screen the director of that program, Dr. Tammy Pulaski. And I will just take a moment of personal privilege. Every teacher in South Carolina should have the opportunity to sit and learn from Dr. Pulaski. She's a phenomenal educator. The center has become a respected voice and resource in helping educators better understand and meet the needs of students impacted by poverty. Dr. Pulaski's passion, vision, and commitment have helped shape a program that is making a real difference in classrooms across South Carolina. And you see here the map and the partner districts that are participating in the work of the Center of Excellence. So our hometown hero today is Dr. Pulaski and the Center of Excellence in Francis Marion University right here in Florence, South Carolina. So kudos to them. And I look forward to taking you to the upstate next month for our hometown heroes. So with that, Superintendent Weaver, I will turn it over to you for your report.
Fantastic. Thank you, and happy August, everyone. Welcome back to school. We have several districts that have already started, that are in the process of starting, and so it has been an energetic few weeks across South Carolina. I wanted to give you just a brief glimpse into some of the many different initiatives and exciting opportunities that we've had since we last were together in June. The first one that I wanted to highlight was our Palmetto Education Summit, which we had in North Charleston. Was so thankful to have board member Cato there, and we're excited to say that the inaugural PES was an incredible success. We had over 700 educators from across the state who registered. We actually had to close down registration because we were not anticipating having that many in the first year. And so we had 5 really key strands of work that we focused on in our keynotes and in our breakout sessions. Of course, the first was literacy. The second was math. The third was the impact of technology use and overuse on students. The fourth was civics education and our character and resilience education. And then the fifth was career readiness. So what I hope you hear there are no surprises, because these are the things that we talk about every single time that we get together, because we believe that these are the back to basics pillars of strong education here in South Carolina. So it was a wonderful summit, and we look forward to next year, where we will continue to grow. We anticipate it'll likely be in the fall of 2027, so we'll give you all plenty of advance warning so you can have that on your calendar. But I think that the opportunity of an event like this is that it is so critical for us to get all of our education stakeholders in the same room at the same time, hearing the same thing. Culture is built on shared language, and when we all are hearing the same message, when we are carrying that same message back into our respective communities, literally in every corner of the state, as this board represents across South Carolina, it's going to continue to allow us to strengthen our community support and participation in the incredible work that is happening in our public schools across the state of South Carolina. I was also privileged in June to speak to around 2,000 educators and administrators from across the state at SCAS's annual I3 conference. It was wonderful to be able to give our education partners in every district an update on the incredible things that are happening here at the Department of Education, as well as to celebrate their work. Because as we often talk about here at the department, we can have the best laid plans on paper in Columbia, and if it doesn't actually translate into real support in a classroom, it doesn't really matter. And so being able to celebrate the successes that we are seeing as a result of the hard work of our educators and administrators across the state was a real gift. And we did talk a lot about the HOPE framework, which is how we are organizing our support work here at the department for our districts in multiple tiers based on district capacity. But I'm very excited to share more with you all in the coming months about how we are pushing that HOPE framework work forward. We often talk about communication and parent engagement, and we know that having our parents as partners in this education journey is one of the most important things that we can have to help support our teachers and to support learning in the classroom. So we were really excited to be able to push out this mailer that is on the desk in front of you to every family of a school-age student in South Carolina to talk to them a little bit about the need to put down the screen and get outside. And I will tell you, I'll leave out names to protect the not so innocent, but we had an employee here at the department whose child had gotten in trouble for sneaking screen time at home, and the next day this mailer arrived. And she said, wait a second. Did you tell Superintendent Weaver what I did? And so, I think the dad left it a little bit ambiguous as to what the answer to that question was. But we are so thankful for the feedback that we received from parents, not only about the resources around Let Grow and Screen Strong, but also in this SC 250 year, the incredible resources that are there to put down the phone and to then go outside and experience the amazing history that we have here in South Carolina. So was very encouraged by the feedback we got for that. And speaking of civics education and the SC 250, we have had some really incredible opportunities. On the left there, you'll see none other than the South Carolina institution, Dr. Walter Edgar. Corey Biedenbow, our teacher of the year, and I had the opportunity to go to SCETV and spend the day with Dr. Edgar. He filmed a live version of his podcast for the SC 250. And then I also had the opportunity to sit down and to interview him, and that's something that we're going to be pushing out to our schools. I wanted him to give a message to our students about why he loves South Carolina history so much and what he hopes they take away from this SC 250 year. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see Palmetto Boys and Girls State. Each year they come to the State House after their wonderful week of gathering in their respective places. And as you all may know, they approximate the civic process. And so they actually elect constitutional office holders and mayors and senators and representatives. And so these two young folks who you see here are Libba Faircloth from Rock Hill and David Vizcarra from Sumter, and they were elected as the state superintendent of education for Palmetto Boys State and Girls State. And so it was just a real privilege to meet them, to be able to escort them down to the State House steps for their inauguration and swearing in. And then also you see in the bottom picture there to be able to talk to them a little bit about Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune and what she means to us here in education in South Carolina. So it was a wonderful summer from a civics perspective. One of the most impactful things that I've had the opportunity to do this summer was to visit Bishopville, South Carolina, a couple of Saturdays ago to honor Major James Capers, the Iron Major. He is one of our nation's newest recipients of the highest award for military valor, the Congressional Medal of Honor. And so you see his Palmetto Pioneer poster that we were able to unveil to him during that welcome home parade in his hometown of Bishopville, South Carolina. And it was just such a beautiful thing. I'm actually reading his book right now, which is called Faith Through the Storm. And just to read the very direct and simple and unapologetic way that he has lived his life, his care for this country. I didn't realize it until reading his book that he did not have to be deployed to Vietnam. He had a son who was disabled, and so he actually had a hardship exemption from being deployed, and yet he chose to go and fight for this country overseas anyway. And so for him to finally be recognized all of these decades after his meritorious service was just an incredibly humbling thing to be able to witness, and something that I committed to him that we would tell his story to every student in South Carolina. And so that's what we're going to do with that Palmetto Pioneer poster. As I mentioned, it has been a whirlwind the last few weeks of school visits for convocations and for first days of school. So here you'll see some pictures from Florence 3. I was able to visit their early learning center there. And I will tell you, it was their first day of school. I have never seen students so on task any day of school, much less the first day of school. Let me tell you what, those first and second graders that I saw were getting after it, repeating their letter sounds, their blends, writing out their names. It was a beautiful thing to watch. Moving across the top there, we also got to visit McCormick for their first day of school. You all may recall that a few months ago they had a terrible lightning strike that set their gym on fire. I'm happy to report that 2 months to the day after that lightning strike, like they were back in that building thanks to the bravery of our first responders who contained that fire. And while the gym has not been fully reconstructed yet, they've been able to contain the damage, and students are back in school. And I want to especially highlight the young man who's in the top right corner there beaming. That is my tour guide, Marty. Marty is a student with disabilities who just absolutely lights up the room when he walks in. And so he toured me around the school. He had his list. He introduced me to each of the teachers that I met and was just a wonderful, wonderful tour guide. Coming down to the middle row there, Anderson 1, I had the privilege of being there in Anderson for the ribbon cutting of their brand new elementary school, Oak Hill Elementary. And what is so incredible about that is that as their district continues to grow in population, they are still remembering the history of Anderson 1. There was an old Oak Hill school that was there for generations previously, and the last graduating class, if you will, of that elementary school was actually there, and they're very elderly now. And so they've actually incorporated a bench in front of the school that's made out of the bricks of that old original Oak Hill school building, which was wonderful. But it's a state-of-the-art facility. It's absolutely beautiful, and I know they are very proud to say that they did it without having to raise taxes. So that board really pinched their pennies and got the job done. Moving down to the left-hand corner, had a chance to sprint through a couple of schools with Superintendent Matthew Ferguson, and Miss Jackie said she was not going to hold it against me that I didn't come to see her school. Yes, but I did visit your school last year, so we'll be back again. But it was a wonderful start to the day there. We had a ribbon cutting in Hampton County. You all may recall that the state came alongside Hampton County and invested, I believe, $52 million for the construction of a new state-of-the-art high school and CTE facility there in Hampton County. And so it was just a joyful day to be able to celebrate the unity of that community, two high schools coming together into a brand new building as the Hampton Hurricanes. So we were very, very excited about that. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was my school visit to Edgefield County. I got to go to Johnston Elementary School, and I was promptly reminded when I was greeted by the mayor that Johnston is not the peach capital of South Carolina. It is the peach capital of the world. He said Gaffney is the peach capital of South Carolina, if you were interested. So I said, yes, sir, I will remember that. And they sent me home with a big, beautiful basket of peaches, which got turned into a cobbler and was wonderful. But the joy of visiting that school, again, on their first day, they have seen incredible gains on their SC Ready, ELA, and math, noticeable gains over the last 2 or 3 years. It's a high poverty school. Over 90% of their students are in poverty, and they are absolutely knocking it out of the park. And so the opportunity to talk to Principal Martin, their principal, we did a roundtable with some of their teachers, and they were very, very honest. They talked about their journey through implementing the high-quality instructional materials that we keep talking about with you all, and they were very honest. They said it was a difficult first year, but they said it does get easier and that you have to trust the process. And the way that they have come to understand it is that it's freedom within a fence. They have ownership and empowerment and collaboration, but they also have a baseline of quality and high expectations for all of their students. And so to hear them say this in their own words, unprompted. At least I did not see a script from Superintendent O'Gorman, and he promised he had not given them one. But it was just a joyful thing to be able to be there and to remember what this is all about, which is helping our students progress in their education journey. So that's a quick snapshot of just some of the things that have been going on here at the department since we last met in June. The last thing, actually, there's another thing, Marlboro. So you all remember in June we had a very important meeting regarding the future of Marlboro County, and I'm excited to tell you that we have a fabulous new leader in there as superintendent, Dr. Elizabeth McDonald. She is well on her way. I had the opportunity to be able to speak at their convocation, and the theme that they have chosen for the year is "It's a New Day in Marlboro, where hope rises, the sun shines." And I will just tell you that the energy of the educators in that room was contagious. You could feel the hope. We had a community meeting after that our business and faith community attended. Our elected officials were there to officially welcome Dr. McDonald to the district. And so I can tell you she has hit the ground running, and I am expecting great things in Marlborough County under her leadership. Now, finally, my last slide, I wanted to go ahead and introduce two very, very special people. If I could have Annie Hsu and Yidong Yi go ahead and come forward and approach the podium here. South Carolina proudly recognizes Yidong Yi of the Academic Magnet School in Charleston and Annie Hsu of Dutch Fork High School in Irmo as delegates to the National Youth Science Camp, which is one of our nation's most prestigious STEM honors for high school students. The National Youth Science Camp is an all-expenses-paid STEM leadership experience that brings together outstanding high school students from across the nation for collaboration with STEAM professionals, hands-on learning, and outdoor experiences in the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. Whew, I said it right. Yidong Yi has conducted biomedical research through Clemson University and MUSC, contributing to studies on spinal disc degeneration and potential treatments for smoking-related cellular damage. Yidong has demonstrated exceptional initiative by pursuing advanced research opportunities, competing in state and national science programs, and expanding STEM participation opportunities for his peers. Beyond academics, Yidong is a committed leader and mentor, serving his school and community through student organizations, tutoring, coaching, and service projects that have impacted more than 250 individuals and families. Please join me in giving him a round of applause. Annie Hsu has conducted research at the University of South Carolina in nanomedicine and neuron regeneration, exploring innovative approaches that may contribute to treatments for neurodegenerative diseases. Annie has also explored emerging technologies through artificial intelligence research programs, applying data-driven tools to scientific discovery. As a science team captain, student leader, and mental health advocate, Annie has positively influenced her school community while helping shape educational opportunities for students across South Carolina through Virtual SC. Please join me in giving Annie a round of applause. So in conclusion, I'll just say that both of these students exemplify academic excellence, leadership, service, and innovation, and have represented South Carolina with distinction while collaborating with some of our nation's brightest young scientists. So congratulations again. We're so thankful to have you here. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And to our students, before you take your seats, it's beyond impressive what you've done, and you haven't graduated from high school yet, right? Some will go a lifetime and won't accomplish what you've already accomplished, but I think the honor is for South Carolina that you will represent us, and you will represent us well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Weaver, and visiting schools the first of the year is always some of the best days of school. So I'm glad that you got to do that. I will take a moment to say that when you visited Johnston Elementary, that was the school that my first teaching job was at Johnston Elementary with the Johnston Bears, and Tammy Martin was one of my students. Get
out.
So,
well, the Bear Den is still thriving, and I have the shirt to prove it. So.
Well, and I am not surprised that under her leadership things are going so well. Thank you for that report. Now we'll move to our public comment. We have one person that has signed up, Felicia Jones Heaton. Okay, if you'll come on forward. We appreciate your interest in public education. We'll allot you 5 minutes for your comments. If we have any questions or need additional information, we will contact you at a later date. And we thank you for understanding our procedures. And we'll go ahead and let you get started.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on just 1 second.
Hold on. 5 minutes. Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everything you've done. My mom was born in Anderson. She's no longer with me, but yes, thank you for reaching out to them. That's a very rural community. So I'm just going to read this to start. So we as leaders, I'm a humanitarian and a peace ambassador. So we as leaders must put barriers in place to protect our youth from exploitation, crimes against minors, neglect, mental and physical abuse, with 1 in 3 being on mental medication. I'm talking about our youth, but our adults too, their parents. So we have to protect them in school and at home. Literally. So under Article 16 of the United States says government and elected officials like you are to keep our minors safe and provide a safe environment for all communities in this state, in the United States. Failure to do so is breach of position and abandonment to our minors and citizens and future generations. So I needed you to ban the food that causes cancer because it's toxic in the water, the food, and the air. That's causing mental illness, and which is why America's literally in a mental illness crisis, even though you guys don't want to face it. I asked you about the drones for human trafficking, and then I said in that time from January 25 to January 26th, the 250 minors were trafficked. And then there's always 25% more when you're doing statistics. I also asked about a class action lawsuit against Elon Musk, who Africa put on the news yesterday, built his data centers here because they would not allow him to do it there because it causes mental retardation. I asked you for $1 million settlement for every citizen, starting with our kids, using Gift to Minor Act, Juvenile Justice Department, and Child Protective Service. Because when you allow them to cut parents' jobs, medical benefits, and their food, and then be allowed to poison them, that's literally called modern-day genocide. Now, Africa didn't want them to genocide here. You think we want our kids having that situation? No, we don't. And I have 9 grandkids. I'm 69. So you got a 370% spike in dementia for people under 40 due to them eating, breathing microplastic PFAS chemicals, and DuPont and Fort Jackson just sued DuPont last September for chemicals in the water. You've done nothing. And I'm not saying you're not doing your good job because I like what you're doing, but yeah, when a kid graduates, they need to be able to tell time by face clock. They need to be able to write their name in cursive. You kind of need to go back a little bit to some of the old stuff, okay? AI is not all good, but it is good for, you have this much chemical in your body today. So with a class action lawsuit from Elon Musk, would be $1 million a month for life. That's what I wanted this up here for. Free medical, mental counseling, screenings, education, a personal assistant, human and AI, because we're going to need it. With 1/3 of your population on ADHD medication, that's the prerequisite for dementia. I told you that. My humanitarian award, I'm sorry, I never told you, is in healthcare. So this is why I work with youth and create jobs in New Jersey, but I've been living here for almost 20 years. So I have 9 grandchildren, and 2 of them live here. And one of them has mental issues. Okay, so it's like, yeah, I'm going to speak, and I brought them to school board meetings. Also, I asked that no one under 40 goes to combat. They should be rebuilding America's infrastructure for their children's children. It's failing. Most of it's been over 50 years old, the bridges, the dams, etc. And you guys sitting there, you're adults. And somebody told me I was crazy for asking you guys for this, but who's going to ask you? A 2-year-old can't say, please don't feed me that food that's banned in UK because it causes cancer. It's in the Similac. It's in everything. And it's not okay. It's not okay to turn your head for that. I asked you to see that $1.29 billion settlement from Scout Motors was to build a speed line from Savannah Airport to Charlotte, Charleston to Atlanta, creating jobs, economic development, offered to travel, and cutting pollution throughout the whole state and adjoining states. And if you guys can't see that, then you're failing to create a safe environment and a viable situation for future generations, okay? I'm not making stuff up. So we desire to enhance the growth and development of minors, citizens, offering health education, like parenting classes, because most of their parents, I'm sorry to say, and you guys have to understand this. Do you know that we're dealing with the remnants of crack generation? So now you got the crack generation, 70-ish, then their kid, and then their kid. The parenting is out the window, and they're all on some form of mental medication. I need you, and I pray that you please help our kids. We don't need to be dodging bullets. When I asked for the drones with the human trafficking, that was because I told you a 4-year-old got shot, But thank you. I'll be back, and I will leave this stuff for you.
Thank you for your time.
And that goes for the parents. You have to say something for your kids, because your kid can't speak.
At this time, we will move into our committee reports. And I'd just like to remind those of you who are visiting with us, our morning started at 9 o'clock, and we have been in committee meetings all morning. And this meeting is the sort of the culmination of all of that work. And so if we do a good job in those committee meetings, it helps expedite the time here today. So with that, I will, the Policy and Legislation Committee met, and we heard no items for approval, but we did hear a report from Philip Cease on the 2026 legislative recap and the budget from our General Assembly. So that was received for information, and there were no items for approval. I'd like to recognize Dr. Johnson to present the Educator Professions Committee report.
Thank you, Dr. Mathis. The Education Professions Committee met this morning and approved 5 items. Those items are the National Accreditation Decision for the University of South Carolina Upstate, Clemson University New Educator Preparation Program in Early Childhood and Special Education, Clemson University New Educator Preparation Program in World Languages, in particular German, the University of South Carolina Aikens Middle Level Mathematics Program modification, and an approval of the updates to the South Carolina Certificate Renewal Plan. These items were approved and placed on the consent agenda, and there were no information items heard. Thank you, Dr. Mathis.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And the report stands as a motion made from the committee. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion? And with that, I would like to say that while we the motions or the information we were brought from the universities was great information, but the highlight of what we heard during that meeting was the updates on the certificate renewal program. And I think this is I applaud the department and Mary Hipp's office. This is going to be a great highlight for our teachers. I think it will streamline their renewal process and help it be more focused on what they need. So thank you all for doing that. So if there is no further discussion, then that motion does carry. This time I'd like to recognize Ms. Lynn to represent the Standards Learning and Accountability Report.
The Standards Learning and Accountability Committee met and approved 1 action item, Uniform Grading Procedure Task. The action item was approved and placed on the consent agenda. The committee also heard 1 act for information, and that was a high quality instructional materials implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Is there any discussion? And again, Superintendent Weaver, while both of those items were very important, I hope that your office and your team will be able to present to our legislators what they are funding for high-quality instructional materials is a great return on investment, and I hope that can continue, but it is making a difference, and I hope they can see that because we need to continue that funding.
Well, and I just want to say, I wish we could have recorded the conversation that I had with those teachers at Johnston, because that proof is in the pudding. The teachers are owning and embracing it because they are seeing the real impacts on real students in their classroom. So thank you for saying that.
And that's what we want. So, the motion for the Standards Learning Committee is approved. The Instructional Materials Review Committee, there was no meeting this month, so now I would like to recognize Mr. Cliff Warren to present the Educator Licensure Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. The ELC met today and we had 10 cases come before us. We had 1 denial and 1 approval for application for certification. We had 2 public reprimands, 5 suspensions, and 1 revocation. That concludes my report. Those were ratified by the full board.
Thank you. And as Mr. Warren said, the full board ratified all actions taken by the ELC committee. The full board educator licensure committee met and heard 1 case, and that resulted in a permanent voluntary surrender. And as I said earlier, the board ratified, in addition to that, all actions taken by the ELC committee. So at this time, we will take up our consent agenda. It has been distributed to our board members. Is there a motion to approve?
Criminger, so move.
All right. Motion made by Vice Chair Criminger, made a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second, Johnson.
Second by Dr. Johnson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. And now, we are moving into our South Carolina Board of Education report, and at this time, we'd like to recognize Deputy Superintendent Virgie Chambers, who has a report for us on school infrastructure.
Good afternoon. To Dr. Mathis, Mr. Chair, Superintendent Weaver, to members of the board, good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to share with you a very high-level overview that is non-technical on how school construction works in South Carolina. I thank you for freeing up and moving through the agenda so rapidly so that I could have at least the next 2 hours to share with you. So thank you for the opportunity. Let me say at the onset that if you have questions, if they're technical questions, I will get with our staff, and some of our staff from the Office of Facilities is here today, and we will be able to provide you with much fuller answers than I probably will be able to give you today. But with that being said, I welcome the opportunity, and you can start the clock, and we'll have 2 hours. Let's get started. First thing I'd like to do is basically give you a very simplified overview of the school construction process in South Carolina. And I've organized it basically into 3 separate boxes. Suffice it to say that in South Carolina, when we try to understand all of the things that go on related to school construction, I think it is important that we first start with the fact that construction is locally led. It is driven by the locality, the community, the boards of education. They determine, and this is box number 1 that I'm talking about, they lead the planning, the funding, what gets built, where it gets built, how it is going to be funded, what professionals they will use to draw up their plans, what construction companies they will use to actually construct their buildings. So it starts with the locals. If you look across these 3 boxes, I will tell you that these boxes fit any type of project and any type of district that is planning to do construction in South Carolina, whether it's new construction or renovation. That first box is owned by the localities. The second box, this is where you start to see the state put certain guardrails in place, not in the sense of we're from the government and we're here to help you, but in the sense of helping districts to actually be able to put forth plans, their vision, and make sure that those plans actually do meet code requirements. That is the Office of OSF, and I'm sure many of you have heard the reference to the Office of School Facilities. By law, OSF is the designated building official for the state superintendent. Once you as a district decide what you want to actually construct, you then submit plans to, and this is box number 2, the Office of Facilities. Facilities will take the opportunity to review your plans. Facilities is there to actually help you as a district or as the taxpayer to benefit from potential savings. Oftentimes, if there is an issue related to code compliance, fire safety, life safety issues, and if the districts have not taken the opportunity to make sure that their plans and their desires comply with all of the requirements under the code, this is an opportunity at step number 2 for the Office of Facilities to help identify those issues and potentially help you as a district to save money, because you're early in the process and you can actually at that time correct those issues before you go forward. Just to say a word about facilities, there are at least 49 different types of projects that come through that office in terms of different work that has to be done and plans that are reviewed. Whether it's a classroom, a mobile classroom, stadiums, parking lots, HVAC, roof repairs, you name it, it comes through that office. And that staff is there to actually assist and to make sure that your plans and your desires are compliant. Once there is the documentation that your project is compliant, the office will give you a building permit where you can then begin to procure your vendors who will take care of your project, who will construct your project, and you will also be able to go ahead and start your building effort. Then we go to box number 3. That box is basically the construction component. This is where your project is going to be constructed, along with oversight from the Office of School Facilities that will help through periodic inspections and also final inspections will ensure that your construction occurs correctly. Once final inspections have been passed, you will receive from the office a certificate of approval, meaning you can now occupy the building. Districts are not to occupy buildings until they have an approved certificate of approval from that office representing the superintendent as the building official. Exciting stuff, I know. I mentioned a few minutes ago OSF being irresponsible for looking at a myriad of different types of projects and giving feedback. I want to delve a little more deeply into the Office of School Facilities and what has occurred in that office over the last couple of years. If you see in that first 2023 we used as our baseline year. In 2023, yes, to some extent we were coming off of COVID and a bunch of federal money that was used for HVAC and wood roof repairs. But if you use 2023 as our baseline, that year the office actually reviewed 120 projects. And it took us on average 149 days per review. Well, we heard from districts. They said that is entirely too long. Superintendent Weaver agreed and said that is entirely too long. Look at what happened in 2024. The number of projects increased to 222, yet the number of days it took us to process plan reviews decreased to 97. The trend kind of continued in 2025. Total of 279 projects. Remember, I said all of the different types of projects that potentially can go through that office. We were able to process those on average took 90 days. And so you ask the question, so how did we do that? Well, we didn't hire significant numbers of new staff. As a matter of fact, we might have added one staffer that we brought back from potential, I think it was some of the ESSER money, because of the different amounts of projects that had to be done. But for the most part, we did not add additional staff. How did we do it? We went through a comprehensive process improvement strategy. The first thing we did, and you can see in the blue box, we set hard deadlines for how long we were going to actually hold plan reviews in the office. It was a 90-day hard deadline. We will process them in that period of time. Now, the 90 days is met based on the condition of the project or the quality of the plans that are brought in to us. But our goal, we set a firm goal of 90 days. What else did we do? There were a number of different routine maintenance projects for which districts had to submit those plans to the department for review. We went through a comprehensive review and identified those more routine maintenance type of efforts and said basically, you don't need to bring those to us at the State Department. Technically, they call them alteration level ones. Additionally, we said, why are we reviewing plans that do not incorporate children or students occupying the building? A bus shop, shed, a building where it's adults in the building, not that you're minimizing, but in terms of children, those type of projects, instead of coming through the department, those were also allowed to go to the local building officials for some review. We took the opportunity to say, let's minimize that. Fire inspections. Our office, along with the state fire marshal, doing inspections for fire. What we decided to do is, well, they're the experts, so let's have an MOU with them and allow them, under our authority, to go forward for us and do all of those inspections. We generated what we called a preferred list of Chapter 1 inspectors who, on our behalf, because we are the authority and we must inspect schools, but we gave that authority over our oversight to preferred Chapter 1 inspectors. And then what we did, and I'm sure you've heard of the Planning and Construction Guide, we cleaned that guide up. Things that are code-related were the things that stayed in the guide. Everything else that was procedural or process, we actually pulled those things out and created a policy and procedures manual. That way, if staff realized that there was an issue during the course of the year that was more procedural, instead of waiting, because we actually meet once a year to look at the guide, instead of waiting an entire year to take care of a procedure matter, we actually put all of the procedures into that procedure manual, and the office then had the flexibility to go in and to actually address different problems or trends that were coming up. So it's a combination of things. It wasn't necessarily adding staff. It was calling on other experts and expertise to help us in this area. It was setting a high expectation for us as an office, and it was our processes in terms of how to change procedural things. All of those things together basically helped us to, instead of sitting on or working on, I'm not saying the staff was sitting on, a plan review that would take 149 days. As of last year, it's 99 days. Are we at 90? Not yet, but we'll get there. So this particular slide, I am not the expert on construction funding, but what I do want to say to you, if you look at the left side, you will see a list of items in the toolkit for local funding for school districts, for school projects. On your right side, you will see state money and other federal resources that are available. The bottom line takeaway from this slide, your property tax millage is your workhorse. It's a local opportunity. If you look on the state side, that is occasional funding. It's one-time funding. It is funding that might be inserted in the budget for a particular project. There's no consistency or stable funding source. But these are examples for you of how funds are actually secured for projects. Given that the state, I want to delve into, so you have your local sources, but I want to speak just to a couple minutes to the state sources that were put out there. From fiscal 19 to fiscal 24, the General Assembly leveraged over $430 million. Now, $40 million of that was federal money that we were able to leverage from some of the COVID relief money at that time. But $430 million was appropriated over a series of fiscal years with different criteria attached to the money, basically to try and, number one, incentivize consolidation of districts, and number two, address some of the aged facility concerns of districts that did not necessarily have the property base and the wealth to be able to construct new buildings. And here is what that $430 million actually resulted in. 22 districts were afforded or awarded funds, and all of these funds were appropriated to the Department of Education and then allocated back out to those districts. There were 33 districts that were actually eligible, but the money ran out at district number 22, basically. As a result of leveraging that money, 5 districts consolidated. Multiple districts, one county consolidated. 5 districts did that. And as a result of that money, 5 new schools were built. 4 of them were elementary schools, and 1 was a high school. And I think Superintendent Weaver referred to the Hampton High School a few minutes ago. It was the benefactor of that additional funding. One of the things that we leveraged when we were allocating that money is that we said the funds, we should make them go as far as they can go. And so to the extent that you are going to design and use the money for a Taj Mahal or a very sophisticated bells and whistles kind of thing, we were trying to stretch the dollars. And so what we required of all districts that actually received new construction funds, they had to use what we called prototype designs. We leveraged money here at the state level. We procured design professionals, and we had them to draw for us or put into place 8 different designs. Some were elementary, some were middle, some were high school, some were comprehensive high schools. And those plans are available now because we, the department, own them. They're available to give to any district right now who is interested in embarking on a school project that's for new construction. We require that of all of the new schools. So when you see those schools, whether it's in Saluda or some of the other places, just know that those are, they benefited from the prototype designs. We were told, and we believe from different experts, that by having prototype designs, they could actually reduce some of your costs, because you would not, it's roughly, I think it said on here, roughly 3.5% of the total cost of your project could be saved if you were to use preset plans. The other thing about these plans is that because the State Department and the Office of School Facilities has actually reviewed the plans, we know that they are compliant. All you as a district need to do is to make the plans site adaptable, whether you, based on the size of the property that you're going to be using. So we believe that is a good thing. Those are available, and we believe that is an opportunity for districts to generate some savings. So this was fantastic. $430.8 million, 5 new schools, 5 consolidations, 22 districts actually received funding, but guess what? The money ran out. And so there are still districts that could benefit from this type money if it was available. That's what happens when you look at the state resources. It's occasional money, one-time money, and it might be tied to a particular criteria that you have to use in order to tap into it. So where does that put us now? We know that local funding is the workhorse. State funding is temperamental, yet there are needs in terms of school construction. So where do we go next? What I want to end with, see, it's not going to take that long. I want to end with just some perspective on what does the future hold? What are some things that could be done as we try to figure out where funding comes from, what schools look like, what enrollments might be? Here I've put before you just 3 things for consideration. The first is that we need to do a better job of planning, and we need to do a better job of predicting what our needs are. The landscape in terms of education choice, alternative models, that landscape is having an impact on what happens and how large of a school you need, the right size for a school, whether you're talking about dual enrollment, choice programs, even virtual programs. So districts need to be in a position where they can actually do a better job of predicting what their needs are. But you don't think about your needs just in terms of the enrollment. There are other factors that you need to look at, whether it's your economic development indicators, whether or not you actually have land that is growing in value. You need to look at those things as well. There's a tool known as a facilities capacity study that can basically help you in terms of planning to help identify what your true needs are. And you're looking at the residential growth, economic development, your enrollment in terms of students, and the condition of your schools. All of those things together will help you in terms of defining what do we need for the future. And overlay on top of that a myriad of other education options. Your systems may be growing because of the population increase, but then parents might also be requiring or wanting additional choice options. Those choice options might not necessarily be at a traditional school. I've heard of micro schools, I believe is another example, that as you try to figure out what your school construction needs to look like, we have to do a better job of planning, we have to do a better job of forecasting, we have to do a better job of trying to predict what is needed. The second box, we need a stable funding source. That's just a long-term, stable funding source that is available to whoever will and whoever becomes eligible, so that districts can go to this particular entity, they could apply for loans, they could even get grants. There are a number of different ways that an infrastructure bank, similar to the highway infrastructure bank could be available to help us find and identify that stable funding source. Right now, the state budget conference committee, there is approximately $95 million that is being negotiated to see whether or not those funds could go into the budget, and we hope that with those funds, we'll be able to help generate an infrastructure bank that will be at least an initial seed fund to start a recurring base of funding. And then the third piece, what can we do at the department to help districts as they try to figure out what their future holds, what their enrollment looks like? We believe part of what we need to do is to make sure, and that within our purview, that we help to get the data, analyze the data that is available to you as districts to make sure that you can appropriately forecast with your needs. We need to make sure that at the State Department, in terms of OSF, we were always in that bucket number 2. Well, sometimes things get out of sequence. We need to be a little more proactive and focus in on bucket number 1. There are opportunities there for us to do multi-tiered, more targeted training, go to pre-construction meetings with districts. All of those things help better inform the districts, make the system more efficient, and therefore help you with your timeline in terms of getting your projects through. So we need to do a better job of doing that. And as Superintendent Weaver indicated, our HOPE Resource Center, that is one effort where we believe facilities and additional training fits in nicely. And so we'll be reaching out to districts to help them with that aspect of it. And so this is, in a nutshell, where we think districts will need to consider in the future. Now, with that, I will be quiet and entertain any questions that might come up.
Thank you, Virgie. I do want to ask, the interesting thing was the prototype buildings you talked about, which I think would cut a lot of time out for districts.
Right.
Does, when districts look at those, do they immediately know, does a cost come with that? Can they estimate if they use one of your prototypes?
We do not charge them for that.
No.
It is
Would they
available
know
to them
how,
free.
if they used one of those buildings, how much it would cost to build that prototype?
Yeah, they would have, because you're going to have the experts who are construction experts to be able to help you to estimate, based on what you intend for your needs are, to be able to help you estimate what particularly could be the square footage or the amount that you would need to build a facility. We have elementary, middle, and high school.
And I think,
plans.
David, like the variability of building materials, the variability of site survey
Sites.
and like construction costs that way, like the land acquisition costs and everything, that would probably vary pretty different across districts. But I mean, Virgie, I think I remember you telling me maybe it was about 40 million for an elementary school. There were rough estimates of how much each one.
We have seen, and this is data basically from some of the districts that are the schools that have been put out there. We believe about 50 million will get you an elementary school. Right.
That's interesting.
Now that's very generic. That same elementary school on the coast will probably, it could cost you more because you have different things related to wind, and it's on the coast.
Right.
The cost of labor is higher on the coast than if you were to go in a rural area. So that's just a rough gauge, 50 million for an elementary school.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, I didn't have the mic on. Would your professional cost estimators factor the location, like coastal versus?
The design professional that is hired by the district or the entity, they will assist in helping to do those estimates for you. The materials that you'll need, the land, all of those kinds of things in terms of adapting the land.
Allison has a question.
I do. First of all, Ms. Chambers, I want to thank you for your department and you for the work that you're doing, because as we all know, this state is growing with leaps and bounds. And even with our choice programs going on, our traditional public schools are getting older, and they're sort of pushed to the beams too with students and everything. I want to throw out a scenario to you. A district goes out and buys property to build a new school. They do it because it's available and they want to get it beforehand. It comes time to build the new school because of the population growth. And they have raised the millage, but they haven't raised their taxes. And they have constructed the school to meet that need. The road that they're on, which is a state road, becomes an issue. So because a lot of our counties are looking at nonstop and go situations with roundabouts and things like that, the school is going to be built on the property, and a mile and a half away is a constructed roundabout. The county is asking the school district to pay for that, which adds about $2 to $3 million more on the construction of. What scenario is out there for when a school builds and they build on property that is available, they don't raise their taxes and go forward? What working situation is there with the South Carolina Department of Transportation and others that don't put that extra
Burden.
on the
Financial burden.
that burden on the school district?
Ms. Allison,
And-
the way that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I don't want to put you on the spot.
No,
so
no, this is fine, this is fine. The way that I'll answer that, and there have been instances of that in certain newly built schools. I can recall one school, this is in the Low Country, where the cost basically was an additional up to $7 million just for the road access that is needed. It is a real issue. The Department of Transportation is one of our partners. It is a requirement that the Department of Transportation, its mission and its responsibility is to ensure that you have clear pathways and free traffic. I mean, it is a real issue. And I guess the best that I could say, using the example from the district not so long ago, is that you have to identify additional funds
right.
to try to accommodate. But all of that is part of why it's so critical when you start at that initial stage and you're deciding what you want, where you want it, how you want to fund it. That's why we believe we need to have our OSF staff come
Right.
out on the front end
Yeah.
and engage in dialogue and conversation with you so you can realize that that is a real cost. Then when those plans are actually sent to us for review, the Department of Transportation is one of our partners. They become aware of the situation. They may be able to offer up some suggestions on some things that can be done.
And
so
that
the key to it is getting it done, or
On the front
starting the
end.
process on the front end as early as possible.
And that would pertain to counties too, with their CTCs and that kind of thing, right?
I guess.
Yeah, yeah, because they have to permit, and if they're not willing to sign off on it unless you bill. But I think that's going to be a future situation too. So what you're saying is to be more concise on the front end.
On the front end,
Yeah.
more predictive planning, know what your needs are, and engage with the Office of School Facilities. I know in the past they've been painted as the big bad wolf, and if I was waiting 149 days for a plan review, I would understand that. But they are there to actually help you to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And
I've
to
al-
anticipate what your issues might
Excuse
be.
me. I've always known that schools were responsible for the in and out and the widening of the road in front of the school, but I had never heard of having to do something a mile and a half away from the school.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
And I'll bet there's probably an engineer in our office who's aware of that, of this
Good.
particular project.
Thank
David
you.
Trent, I think you've got some questions.
One thing that was interesting to me is the capital summary needs report we saw a couple months ago is the amount of renovations that schools are planning in the next 5 years. I think it was something like $4.3 billion versus new construction. And I wonder, is the a school that's looking to add, a wing of classrooms or just doing some additional renovations, is that approval window kind of still fit into that sort of that 90-day sort of mark that y'all want to kind of get those plans approved by, or how does that different than getting approval for a brand new school construction?
Now, all projects,
Yeah.
you have that, that's our goal, to
Yeah.
get those plan reviews processed.
Mm-hmm.
If those are projects that really need to come to us,
Sure.
the more routine ones would not,
Mm-hmm.
but it is our goal to have all projects processed within that 90-day
Right.
period.
Do ya-
Assuming we get plans that are in quality shape,
Mm-hmm.
address all of the issues that the district should address, we then will, within 90 days, turn that
Sure.
around.
Do you anticipate, I would think, with the amount of money it costs to acquire land, I don't care if you're in land values are really getting expensive in South Carolina. So I would think if a school district probably is going to see more situations where they want to improve the facilities they already have or add on versus building new schools. Do y'all anticipate that being something you're going to see more often in your office, is requests for additional classrooms, renovating existing facilities, that kind of stuff? Obviously the data shows that,
right.
that might be happening.
The capital needs report, I think what you're referring to is a 3-year report every 3 years. It's
Yeah.
districts' reported data of their best estimate of their needs down the road.
Sure.
And yes, that report did reflect a number of renovations needed.
Yeah.
Part of that might speak to, now of course it's district reported data, but our facilities are getting older.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at some point, it is going to cost you more to operate an older, aged building than to build a new one or to do major renovations.
Sure.
And so that is what I suspect might be some of what is being conveyed through those reports. But again, we would, as the projects come to us, we would process and handle those reports. That report is an estimate. It includes, for the first time, I believe, there was actually even estimates from the 2 charter authorizers for a need for schools. And so the numbers are there. They can be it can cross your eyes. But there's some need out there, yes, for aged buildings, but there's also need because of growth in communities and populations.
Is in question related to charter, you look at a typical new school that's built, I always think about the hub and spoke concept. You come in through the office, you check in there, and then you have all the hallways and that kind of stuff. Are our charter schools building a little bit different? Because the designs tend to look a little different than traditional schools. Is that something that we're seeing, a different sort of layout and concept? And is that a cheaper option than the way we build traditional schools today?
So the needs of charter schools, they are sometimes unique. They're also on a
We have one in an
different
old closed
timeline.
service merchandise in my neighborhood, so it's
right,
definitely
and that's
different.
what you'll find with
yeah.
a lot of schools
Yeah.
or charter schools, that they are identifying commercial property and then retrofitting those
Mm-hmm.
properties. Those buildings have to meet code compliance.
Sure.
They
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
must be suitable for educational purposes. So it's not like they're getting by with anything.
Sure.
They still have to abide by the same standards. It's just that the timeline that they are on, 18 to 36 months to try to get into a school, to have that school online, versus the more traditional school that might take up to 4 years to build a school. They're dealing with a different dynamic.
Yeah.
It makes the process a little more complex in terms of your plan review, but a school classroom in a charter school will look no different than a school classroom in a traditional school.
I have a question. The state funding that we're hoping for, who decides which school or which district is it most need? Is that this committee or this office? Or what is the
Actually,
legislature?
the wording of the proviso, as I understand it, is that a committee would be created that would then make decisions based on the applicants, the criteria, even the type of information that is provided to the bank in order to make a decision. I mentioned facility capacity studies, where you're looking at the whole picture, your enrollment, your economic data, your residential data. All of that's on the onus of the district or the entity. That information is supplied to that infrastructure bank, and that infrastructure bank, in theory, will then determine, based on the monies available, the investments that might take place, how much can then be used to partially help fund a project or to fully fund a project. But it's like the glue that'll help us stitch all of this together, all of the complexities that every district is dealing with. Infrastructure Bank is an ideal framework for experts, I believe, is how the proviso reads, for experts to help make decisions and determinations for using that money.
And just to add a little bit of color commentary to that, so that Education Infrastructure Bank was my #1 request to the General Assembly. We asked for recurring money. I think we asked for $100 million in recurring funds and $20 million as our school safety supplement that we have asked for and received from the General Assembly for the last 4 years. And so that $20 million, which is in this request that they have funded, so the way that it breaks down in this current year's math is that they have put $75 million in non-recurring funds on the line. So back to Virgie's point, we're still in search of that recurring source of funding that we know that we can rely on. What I am encouraged about with the structure of this year's proviso is that the decision-making has been more ad hoc in the past. Now, there were parameters that were put around the allocation of the money based on the poverty of the district and a number of other factors that the General Assembly deemed to be important. But what this does is, as Virgie said, actually creates a governing board structure. And so what I'm encouraged about is that this is the first step in the down payment on that permanent structure. So we will have a team of experts who have finance, construction, et cetera, expertise that they can help us make decisions within the parameters that the General Assembly gives us. You know, one of the instances that I was really intrigued about is that we actually have high poverty districts that are also high growth, but they don't have the same tax paying ability because industry is not necessarily moving there. A lot of times it's residential. And so those challenges, you know, I think of Dorchester 4, Anderson 3, some of those districts that are more rural, high growth, but also high poverty. And so we want to make sure that those districts aren't left out of any allocation, even though they're continuing to grow, even while many of our rural communities are shrinking. So there's a lot of different things that you have to balance, but I think that the structure that the General Assembly has given us this year, along with the $95 million total that's on the line, $75 million for construction and $20 million for school safety, I think is a really great continued step in the right direction. So we'll be back next year asking for recurring funds.
I just want to add that that's the infrastructure bank is probably one of the most exciting things I've heard today. I think it will go so far in equalizing the opportunities for low or for poverty districts, and for districts where there's not, with their local politics and everything that interfere with the equal opportunities for students. So I think that's exciting, and I hope you keep on pushing that one very hard.
I think it's exciting too. I think the fear I have is that it becomes a political, like what is most politically expedient for this community over this community, and I hope that doesn't come into it. I hope it becomes a really need-based.
And I think that's certainly the goal of the proviso and the way that we've worked with the General Assembly and the way that they have structured it is that it needs to be fully transparent and it needs to be based on a clear formula that everyone can do the math on. And so whether we're looking at, ways to weight the index of tax-paying ability, ways to look at projected growth, I mean, there are a lot of different factors, again, that go into it, the cost of construction in a particular district. But that said, it needs to be transparent, and that's certainly, I think, the structure that they've given us in the proviso that they've passed.
Are all school districts required to get approval to build a new school? Are all school districts required to get approval to build a new school?
Yes, sir. All public schools, which would include charter schools and traditional public schools.
So says the building official for all schools.
Yes, the state building official right here. So, and I just want to take a moment of personal privilege, Virgie, to thank you for your leadership and for our OSF folks. So y'all, just so you know, they are coming off of, they are coming off of the craziest time of year for them because all of the school districts are doing these renovation projects in the summer. And so I don't know if they've been home to shower and sleep in several weeks. They look really good, but anyway, they do a great work. And they have just really approached the process improvements that Virgie laid out with such ownership and such gusto. And I'm just incredibly grateful for your leadership, Virgie, and for the hard work of the team.
I just follow the smarter people, okay?
Chairman Mathis.
Yes.
If I could add, first of all, I have to say, Ms. Virgie, you're a legend.
Really?
You've been a great resource in my times of working in operations. So I have to say that first. You are definitely a legend and a great
That means
resource.
I've been around too long.
Yeah. Not at all. I'm so glad to hear that the department, Superintendent Weaver, you're looking at options for districts. Some have very little options. Their operational millage rates are low. They don't have the opportunity to do a penny sales tax or think about bond referendums. Some districts can do bond referendums. Some districts can do bond referendums with no tax increases. So they need options because at the same time, they still have old buildings. They have buildings that were built 50, 60 plus years, when 70 years, and safety has a whole different view now these days. So thank you for looking at options to give some of these districts, or they will continue to have deteriorating buildings. Thank you.
And Virgie, Superintendent Weaver reminded me that 99 days to approve is an average. So there are some projects that get approved sooner than that, and that's important to know. I will say we've heard a lot today in our meeting about high-quality materials, effective instruction, but where our children go to school and the environment they go to school in matters. It matters significantly, and so I appreciate what you're doing to make sure that our students are in safe buildings, they're in buildings that they're proud to be in, and I think that's extremely important. I over the past few weeks, as Joey earlier said, I'm a recovering superintendent, retiring, and I read about these schools opening up, and will it be on time? Will it not? So OSF, thank you for getting out there and getting those buildings open. But the celebrations that are going on,
That's
Orangeburg.
Right. That's right. Happy faces.
Oh,
happy
yes.
parents and communities. Yeah.
And the community was so excited for them to be there. And I think that in a lot of places, especially because I was in a rural community, it's the common ground. It's what brings people together. And we want to be proud, and we want our families to be proud of where our children go to school. So thank you. Sometimes I know it didn't get us done as quickly, hurry up and get it done. But I know that you got safety first in mind, so I appreciate
Always. We never compromise safety.
that. Yeah. So with that, do any other board members have any questions or discussion points? Virgie can answer all of those answers. Joy, as she said, she's the legend. She knows. She knows. Thank you very much for that. So is there any other business for the board members that we need to take care of for the good of the order? I would remind you to give Jess your travel vouchers. So hearing no other business, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say everybody on the board knows that I usually make this adjournment, but today I want to do it just a little bit different, if I may.
Sure.
I'd like to adjourn the meeting in honor of Lindsey Graham, one of the great who went to school in South Carolina and proved a little country boy from a little small town what he could become. And I just would like to make the motion that we adjourn in honor of Senator Lindsey Graham.
Well said. Is there a second? Second, Rita Allison. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
We're adjourned.